You're listening to the Roofing Success Podcast, a show created to inspire roofing contractors to achieve optimal success in their roofing businesses. I'm the host, Jim Moline, the co-author of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors, How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. I'm also the co-founder of Roofer Marketers, the digital marketing agency for the roofing industry. On each episode, I'll be sitting down with industry leaders to talk about their processes, the lessons they've learned, and how to find success in roofing. Hey, welcome to another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. As always, please like, please follow, please share, please comment, please subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're on the podcast networks, if you're on YouTube, or if you're watching us on social media, please subscribe, please like, please comment. It helps us get our content out to more and more contractors out there. So today we have a special guest, Robert Jordan from RJ Construction. Originally started off in the DFW and then, has grown his business to one of the top 100 roofing companies in the country and has expanded into many other markets. But Robert, for guests of ours who don't know you or haven't heard of RJ Construction, tell us a little bit about your story. How'd you get into roofing?
Well, Jim, first and foremost, thanks for having me on the show. Real pleasure to be here. To answer your question, me, like most roofers, we didn't grow up, intended to be a roofer. And when I was 15 years old, what I perceive as the greatest hailstorm of all time, the Mayfest storm, 5.5 of 95, blanketed DFW with, at one point for many, many years, held the record for the largest insurance loss in the state, or so the lore goes. And I kind of feel like it was during that time frame that the game of roofing and how we as industry conducted business started. But really, for me, I was just a 15-year-old kid working in the summer for $7 an hour, doing tear off and laying shingles. And so I laid shingles all through high school, and that was my job. So I've been on a crew. I laid my first shingle at 15, and that's where that started. Funny story that goes with that. I had a football coach who I was a well-recruited college athlete in high school. I was blessed with an unbelievable athletic ability. And so I was chased by a lot of colleges in the country, and I would never go to the summer workouts because I was on a roof working in the summers. And so coach got really upset with me that I wasn't coming to the workouts, and he didn't understand that I was working sun up to sundown Monday through Saturday. And so finally I just said, hey, coach, I'll make a deal with you. You come out and work with me, and I'll see you at 6 a.m. on the job site. And if you can hang out past 10 o'clock, I'll find a way to start coming to some of your workouts. About 9:30, he left. Anyway, went to college to play football. Went to UNLV and chased a football career there. And never works out the way it's supposed to, but had a good run at it. And came home and got into banking, is kind of the way the story goes. And the market crash of 2007, we all had to find a way to make supplemental income because we were selling loans and couldn't do it. So what I did was I went to work with a friend of mine's uncle in Dallas, and he kicks himself in the ass every time that this conversation comes up. But I took and sold 3 roofs for him for about 50, 60 grand, something like that. I used my crew that I roofed houses with in high school. It was really fun to see that kind of unfold. The crew leader was, at the time was 8 years old on that crew picking up trash for his dad. And now he was running a crew. And then we did 3 roofs and did some other stuff that went with it. And I did all the work with the insurance company and scheduled the delivery and did all the project manager. And I handheld the whole thing all the way through and got all three of them paid within about the same week. And showed up, turned them in for commissions, and the guy goes, "Hey, here you go, get your commission check." And he handed me a check for about $2,000. And I said, "Well, that doesn't look right." He said, "Well, you know that general liability insurance that you pounded your chest about to those customers?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "I pay for that." I said, "Okay." "And that line of credit that you bought them shingles on, that's my line of credit." And I said, "Okay." And he said, "You see that name on the side of the door?" And I said, "Yeah." He said, "I get to call the shots." And I said, "So what you're telling me is I need a general liability and a line of credit, and we're good to go." And he said, "Yeah." I said, "Okay, thanks." He said, "Where are you going?" I said, "Well, I quit. I'm going to go start my own roofing company." And I literally got up and walked out the door, and I called my Allstate insurance agent and said, "Hey, can you get me a GL policy?" And he said, "No, but my dad can." And by the time I got to my bank back in Arlington, this guy was in Dallas. And by the time I got to my bank in Arlington, my banker gave me a $10,000 line of credit. And
Off
the
we
rest is history.
go.
Yeah, the rest is kind of history from there.
That's awesome, man. Yeah. Instead of taking that conversation and saying, "Oh, well, I guess that's how it goes," you took that conversation as, "Yeah, here's the three things you need to do to start your own company. Go, get to work."
Yeah.
So you've had that. You're an entrepreneur. You had the mortgage business and things like that. So you must have had some entrepreneurial, kind of drive to you. Other than roofing, did you ever have a job other than that?
Yeah. So when I worked for the banks, I
Yeah.
worked for CITI City.
Okay.
I
Yep.
worked for Chase, and I worked for Bank of America. So
Okay.
I worked for the big banks. I worked on the auto finance side. I worked on repossession and recovery, loss control, mitigation, that kind of stuff. I
Okay.
worked on credit side. I worked on in the auto side, and then in the banking world, I worked. I was a loan officer on the home side. I was a loan officer. I was an underwriter. I managed a modifications team. So I always excelled when I was at the bank. I've always understood the banking side of it and the math. And
Yeah.
I've tried to put a humanizing touch on that. And, was always really successful at it. And I took that same philosophy when I started doing roofs. Just be real about it, right? Put myself
Yeah.
in the customer's shoes. Why does this make sense? And just be genuine towards the process.
Yeah, for sure. What lessons did you learn? I mean, UNLV football, like that you're playing in the big leagues there, right? Like, especially in that time frame. What?
Division One football.
Yeah.
John Robinson was our head coach for the majority of the time that I was there. Coached at USC. The coach that recruited me was from my hometown. There was
Okay.
a lot of synergies there. It was really cool. I got recruited by a guy named Ruffin McNeil, and Ruffin has got a storied past, very cool storied past with Lincoln Riley when he was at East Carolina, and he was his first assistant at OU when he was at OU, and he spent some time at Tech. So really neat guy that was the one that personally recruited me, and then Jeff Horton was the head coach. And we go on 11, and they all got fired, right? And I was going to leave, and I was done. And anyway, find out John Robinson's coming, and my dad called me, and I said, "Yeah, I'm leaving. I'm getting out of here. I'm not going to stay here. They fired all my coaches that brought me here." And my dad said, "Well, you're a dumbass, because they probably just hired arguably the greatest head college football coach of all time. He's got 5 national titles and 3 Heisman Trophy winners. I think you need to stay right where you're at." So
that was good advice.
yeah, and so I love the game of football. I think that football is the reason why I am so successful. I think football is the game of life, and I think that football presents you with every opportunity in the world, and there's not a single life situation that you will not face when being on the football field. So I believe in that. I have quotes from coaches, different coaches on my grease boards here in my office that I often use to remind myself of And I think it's the ultimate team sport. And so I've taken that philosophy in how I work with my team, and the way I view things from a company standpoint. And I've said this for years: nobody works for me. We all work together. And I correct my teammates a lot when they say that. Hey, I work for Robert. No, we work together, because I can't do the things that I want to do, that we want to do as a company, without everybody doing their part. And that's a philosophy that I took away from playing football and having some great coaches as great mentors to lead me into adulthood.
Yeah, and having those, a lot of people don't get to experience that, right? Don't get to experience that locker room speech from a coach like that. What kind of lessons did you? Tell me a story or one of those times that stuck out to you. Maybe that was like, man, this one is not. It wasn't just for the locker room; it was for life. You remember any of those?
I do, yeah. So one of my favorite coaches of all time is a guy named Greg Bowling. Coach Bowling is his name. He was a junior high coach, right?
Yeah.
Subsequently, he has coached a couple of our team members here. He's a customer now in adult life, and but I was in the ninth grade, and we were playing Workman Junior High, and I stepped on a sprinkler head and rolled up my ankle really bad. I actually had a hairline fracture in it at the time, and nobody knew it. And he kept telling me that I couldn't quit. I know it hurts. We were short-handed. We only had like 13 people. Finished the game with like 11 tackles and 2 sacks, and it all came in the second half on a broken ankle. And he said that he would carry me to the bus if I could finish the game, and he did. And they actually ended up doing surgery on my ankle the next day to put a pin in it to help it heal, and I was in a cast. And that was, but it was a mind over matter thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, we're not going to stop, right? And so that philosophy was really instilled at a young age by him, by his staff. Don't give up. We're going to outwork everybody else. Off season, right? He didn't believe in the word off season. We don't take off. So he switched it and called it championship development. And those habits and culture carried on as we went to high school. I firmly believe that that's the foundation to my success as an athlete. I took my God-given ability and was able to compound on that and outwork most to get you there. So it's a don't give up. You keep swinging, and you outwork everyone else. And that's just how it's always been in my world, no matter what it is I'm doing.
And that really is a lesson, right? Like, no matter what comes in front of you, you just keep going. You just keep going. You get to the next, and you solve a problem. He solved the problem. He said, "I'll carry you to the bus." Right? But we got to finish this game. Like,
Right.
we have to do this. Man, it gets tough as business owners sometimes.
Sure does.
You're walking around with a broken ankle a lot of times, especially early in your business, right?
I call it the nicks and the cuts, and we still go through it today.
Yeah.
There's things that pop up daily. There's some issues that are very solvable on a small level. Mad customer, upset customer. We're seeing a lot more of that right now. And then on the backside of that, there's bigger issues, right? What do you do when you get sued for the first time?
Yeah.
How do you understand that that's just part of doing business, right? It's nothing personal. It's just business.
Yeah, definitely. And so you guys have grown. So you started off in the DFW and you've grown to the Kansas City market. You're out in South Carolina markets.
That's correct.
So, there's a lot of challenges in that type of growth, right? There's a lot of challenges in managing teams from afar, finding talent, finding and recruiting good talent in that area. Through that growth, speak to that a little bit. What have you, what led you first? What led you to say, hey, you know what? We want to expand beyond the DFW. What was that mission for you?
So for me, it's a simple. It's not a simple situation. It's Texas is a complex animal, and this is what led to it. Um, in the state of Texas, there is no TDLR does not regulate roofers. Anyone can be a roofer. Um, I mean, anyone can be a roofer, and so uh, ARCAT's done a good job of creating their own licensing inside of their association to give some consumer protection, some comfort in who they're hiring, and then they make you take a test. Like there's a test to prove that you can put a roof on, and we can get into that topic later and about how much a roof costs versus how much it costs to wire a home or to plumb a house. They're very big different numbers, and the roof is usually more. And it protects a whole lot more. And there's a lot more. To me, it's on the same level. But there is none of that, and so right now, roughly, we think there's about 10,000 roofers in Dallas-Fort Worth. And we're only able to gauge that number by kind of sort of what's registered through the BBB on the Tarrant County and the Dallas County side. And I may have that number off. I'm shooting from the hip on it, but it's a big number.
Yeah,
a really big number.
6,000, 8,000, 10,000, all. Yeah, it's a big number.
It's a really big number, and that's the only reason. And that's the only way we know. So, with that said, we have some issues that always seem to occur when the hailstorm shows up. There's guys that are just trying to start a business and be a roofer, and they give it away. You go back to that 5.5 of 95 storm that I talked about earlier, and people in Texas had a $200, $250 deductible. Insurance companies wrote a check with no depreciation taken out of it, none of that. No mortgage companies wrote a check less the deductible, and what's $250? And hell, 30 years ago, whatever it was, that's a lot of money. 35 years ago, whatever it was, that's a lot of money. However, it just created this domino effect with the deductible, and created layers and layers and layers of issues that I just have still to this day continue to see compound after the storm occurs. And it's guys trying to be creative, trying to get a marketing edge, but they're breaking the law. But in 2017, we didn't have anything, right? And it was the storm that hit Allen in 17. And there's a street that I have roofed almost every house in that entire street in the 75013 zip code 4 times, now 5 since 2009. But there's this one customer that was not a customer. There's just one resident that lives in between 2 of my customers who was just a filthy, nasty woman in the way that she conducted her business. And so it was 2017. I was there on the street, and she said, she said, "Hey, RJ, I need to talk to you. Come over here and talk to me." And I was like, "All right." So I go over, and she goes, "You want my business?" And I said, "Sure." She goes, "Well, this is what it's going to take. I'm not paying my deductible. I want to put some money in my pocket. I want a flat screen TV, and I want to be entered in the drawing for your cruise." That's almost verbatim what she said. And I was like, "Well, wait a minute. What about this cruise? Like, am I going on the cruise? Like, tell me about this cruise." And she said, "Well, 2 of the other guys here are talking about a cruise, and a couple of the other guys are giving away flat screen TVs, and I'm not paying my deductible, and I expect to put a little cash in my pocket. I make good on these hail claims every time they come through." And I walked away pissed off. I mean, I walked away just pissed off. And I decided there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a different way. Because this is just plumb ridiculous trying to fight this game where, it's a race to the bottom. You're cutting out all the profits to the job. You're not running a good business. And being around as long as I have, and I haven't been around as long as some of these guys. Some of these guys have been around for 50 years. But I was fortunate enough to get to be mentored by some of these guys early on. The Chris Sazos, the Mike Huddlestons, Brett Hall, some of these guys, Dan Pitts. I mean, I've had a chance to, learn from them. They always told me, like, if you're going to waive the deductible, you ain't gonna be in business very long. You can't afford to stay in business if you do that. And so that was kind of, my groundwork into that world. And so I just said, there's got to be a better way. Why am I going to fight with these guys that are all going to be out of business in a year or two or three? And most of them are. They come and go. Roofing businesses seem to just come and go. So I started looking, and I spent a lot of time. I was very methodical. Um, I looked in Minneapolis. I looked in Kansas City, Omaha, and Lincoln area. I looked in Nashville, and I looked in Charlotte. Um, and it came down to a couple different angles. One of them was the cost of television and television marketing. Minnesota was higher than a kite. Charlotte was higher than a kite. Um, and then flights out of DFW to get me to where I needed to be and access and all that kind of stuff. And then I also wanted there to be some form of licensing. I wanted to go take a test and do the, see what it was like in a different market. And so there it is. I chose Kansas City. Kansas City's TV costs were a fraction of what it was in Dallas Fort Worth. I had to take a test, which was the Johnson County test. It's an ICC exam, and then have to be registered. You got to pay your taxes. You don't get to waive the deductible. It's against the law. I mean, there's a whole structure there, and it's not a big structure. It's not like it's just regulated heavily by the state. It's the way it was, and we chose Kansas City. The deciding factor for Kansas City, the final deciding factor. I had some friends that lived there, and they had a basement. That's foreign to us in Texas, and so I lived in their basement the first year that we were there, opening this office and getting this office off the ground.
That's awesome, man. And so going from the unregulated, DFW to the, more structured Kansas City market, did it turn out the way you thought?
No.
Dealing with other contractors and things like that. Is that, is it like, hey, there's a lot more upstanding contractors here now because of that?
So there's good contractors and bad contractors no matter where you're at in the country, right?
For sure.
And I'm sure there's people that would say I'm a bad contractor, but there's people that say I'm a good contractor. But that's up to interpretation. This is what I can say about going to Kansas City that I think is huge. I went to Kansas City thinking that I was the greatest roofer on the planet, right? I had this big giant head, which I already do anyway. And I'm the greatest roofer to ever walk this earth for one reason only, because I am from Texas. And I'm going to come up here and show you Midwest folk how it's done. And pounded my chest and did the whole thing. And I got up there and I was humbled very quickly, and realized very quickly that I'm in an entirely different world, that I know something about something, but I know a lot about nothing. And so it really took me coming down some pegs to accept what was going on and learn the process.
So what were some of those things that you had to learn up there?
So they deal with a different animal. You being in Minnesota, you can appreciate this than we have here in Texas. It's this thing called snow. Didn't account for it. Didn't think about it. It wasn't in my wheelhouse. I just figured, there's no place like home, and Dorothy and Kansas and, all that stuff. And they deal with the snow factor. So the business turned off at Thanksgiving, and I never even crossed my mind what we were going to do in the winter, and everybody's like, oh, well, you go plow snow. I'm like, plow snow? How plow snow? What are you talking about? So that's the short and the narrow to it. The snow factor was huge. So one of the things that I did, and one of my big mistakes, was I buy some of my items, my ancillary items in bulk. And I sent a bunch of ridge vent up there, a bunch of Cobra 3 ridge vent from Texas. And me and my construction manager that I hired in KC had a huge fight about this. And I told him he didn't know what the hell he was talking about, and get on board with me, and I sign your check. And this is, me being a big head and being humbled in the process. And kind of like an old dad said, all right, go ahead, lead on. And so we put Cobra 3s on a house in um, Shawnee Mission. And first snowstorm, it sucked all the snow in the attic. So it's like, wait a minute. How'd that happen? So yeah, that's when I tell you snow is a factor, ice is a factor, changes the way you roof when you're there.
Yeah, definitely. So market to market, there's changes in how you're building the roof. Then there's also changes in the seasonality and the considerations of what, of that factor in. I mean, we have up here in Minneapolis, it's a short season. This is, you got to get it. You get your work in and you go ice fishing.
April to October, if you're lucky.
Yeah. And so that's a big change. And so that was the first the first extension of the business into another market. The next extension was into South Carolina, which is again a much different market, right? So what kind of challenges did you face opening or lessons did you learn opening the South Carolina market?
Still ongoing.
Okay.
Still ongoing. I again, just a different market, different, different. So that actually changed into a whole different thing. So you don't think time zones are a big deal, but time zones are a big deal, right? You don't think that hour time zone difference between here and South Carolina is a big deal? Well, it is, right? I didn't realize how far it is out there from Dallas. It's a long flight. And so I, have had to adjust how I travel because usually I just get the 6 a.m. flight to KC. Well, now I'm catching a 8 o'clock, flight on Sunday nights, and spending Monday, Tuesday, Wednesdays, and flying home late Wednesday nights is usually kind of the schedule, so I don't miss a work day. First couple of times I did it, I'd catch a 9 o'clock flight or whatever the first flight to Greenville was, and look up and it's 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've been in a plane all day and got nothing done. So that's probably been the biggest hurdle that I've had to work through and just kind of readjust to the logistics. So, it is what it is. Regards to how they transact there, they transact very differently in South Carolina. The quality of the roof and how they want their roofs built there is just not the same thing that we build in Kansas City, where I think we build a hell of a roof. They're not concerned with coastal stuff. They don't get the weather that we get in Texas. So there's just differences. They don't have class 4 shingles in that market. It's a lot of cut 3 tabs on the hips and ridges. It's just very different for how they transact there and the consumer and what they're looking for. Also, there's a lot of double wides and single wide trailers in the Carolinas that just a way of life. Like it's just, so we roof them and keep moving. So
yeah, that's a big difference. What about hiring in those markets? And I don't want to say, the difference is each of those areas of the country moves a little bit differently. South usually moves a little slower, right? The down in Texas there, you guys are boom, boom, boom. You're build and go, right? Like it's different. What have you had to deal with employment wise, like on the hiring side and on the team within those different markets that lessons that you've learned there?
So, I'm blessed with the 2 guys that I hired to help me open my Kansas City office. One of them has opened his own roofing company, and one of them's been in the game forever. And they were really, really instrumental in helping us get that office off the ground. And I couldn't have asked for a better situation. And when you have good people, people come knocking at their doors to go chase them down and get them. And so I went through some of that. And I didn't I didn't realize at the time, you know, that they were teaching me, and I
Mm.
wasn't really. I mean, I was teaching them too, like the RJ way and how we do things and our structures and our systems. But they were teaching me as well, and it was more of an adaptation to the Kansas City market. In South Carolina, it's different there as well. Um, and what I like about Texas is the big roofers are somewhat of a good fraternity of guys. Not going to say we're friends, but we all see each other. We all respect each other, and we help each other out. Crews do a bad job sometimes, and you need their help. During those times, as much as they need yours when their crews do a bad job, and the customer's mad and calling other people, right? So you run into those things. Kansas City, they were very, very cold. The opposing roofers were. They were very cold. And it's taken a lot over the last 4 years for me to bridge some of those gaps and meet some of them. I know you did a podcast with Garen with Shamrock Roofing. Garen and I've met. A really nice guy. When I met him, he was going through some health issues and couldn't leave. And since then, he's opened an office in Omaha and an office in St. Louis. And I like to think if I picked up Garen, I picked the phone, call Garen right now, he'd probably answer my call and shoot the breeze with me and help me out if there was something that we could do together. But that's been a big hard iceberg to break through to build that type of relationship. They're very much against each other in Kansas City. Now, I go to South Carolina, and them old boys out there, they're extremely territorial. And there have been some shots fired at us. And, one of the stories that I heard was that they've all kind of dreaded the day a Dallas roofer shows up in Greenville, South Carolina. And so we haven't, that parlays into, new guy shows up in town, has a reputation in other places, puts an ad out, and we got flooded with some guys that worked for several of the contractors. Maybe they were secret shopping us. I don't know. But in Dallas, this is interesting. In Dallas, your roofing salesmen don't get a base salary. It's 100% commission. There's plenty of work to go around, and that is a really interesting dynamic for how all that is structured, right? You go to Kansas City and you try to hire somebody on 100% commission, and you're just not going to get a quality person. And so we took that mindset to South Carolina and started offering base salaries to our roofing salesmen there, and hoping to attract talent. And man, it's created some challenges there in that industry with those guys being a little frustrated with that. So it is what it is.
They're used to the 100% commission out there also.
They are. Yeah. They are.
And that it's just, every market is different, it's just, and there's challenges in each, but there's benefits to all of them. It's just how you want to run your business, and sometimes growth hurts, lots of lessons to learn, but it's definitely beneficial. I mean, you guys are a top 100 roofing contractor in the country. You're doing something right, so, but how do you think the Texas laws, the changes down there have affected the market? Those 10,000 roofers, is it down to 8? Is it, are there still the chuck in the trucks just eating deductibles every day? What have you seen on that side?
So when we had a big storm here a couple months ago, the comments are always the same. I don't know who these new roofing companies are, but there were so many signs of people you've never heard of ever, right? And that's what you see. You see these just signs everywhere, right? So when you talk about the deductible bill that passed in the Texas House and Senate, signed into law, came into effect September 1st, 2019, there were some really unique challenges that it created. So Texas Farm Bureau is an insurance carrier They took it a step further and say, hey, you have to show us proof of the deductible. We need to see the check that they paid, they wrote you a check on, and we need to see the back of it where it cleared into your bank account, or a credit card receipt, or whatever. So that was a pretty bold move on their part. I liked it. It made you get in that mindset. Secondly, there was language that has to go into your contracts. It has to be a certain font size, has to be bolded. Customers got to initial that it is a crime to waive a deductible now. And so there was a lot of, how do you say, pushback in the very beginning from the customer, because the customer wasn't used to it. What do you mean I got to pay my deductible? Well, yeah, it's part of your financial obligation that you have to pay that. And so that was the first part of it. But really, my guys have done a great job in how they've educated the homeowner and explained it to them. And they just say, hey guys, listen, you need a roof and you got to pay your deductible. And I can't waive your deductible because, my family's livelihood depends on, me making a paycheck every week. And I don't want to get in trouble with the law. You don't want to get in trouble with the law. It's not worth it. And so that's really just kind of been our approach. Like, we got to do it. Sorry. What I think it has done, that's helped the Dallas market immensely, is the door knockers that go out there and are throwing, roofs that don't need to be replaced into the claim status, and frivolous claims being filed, and consumers who don't need a roof, right? That's where I think the change has occurred, because used to, they would say, hey, you want to get a free roof? Let me get up there and look, and I'll get you a free roof. That was kind of the door knocker pitch. And that's the way they approached it for years. And so I think a lot of that has slowed down and curtailed. We don't hear that. We don't hear that verbiage anymore from our consumers when we're out there in the public.
So things are changing. That's, and the industry will change, and you got to change with it. And I know you're a director at RCAT, right?
Yes, I'm on the board of directors for RCAT. I work specifically on the government relations committee. And I've been very involved in our legislative process and understanding what's going on. I worked pretty heavily on this project for the 2021 session back in fourth quarter of last year, speaking to a lot of our roofers, and really and truly, what every roofer that's listening to this needs to pay attention to from a national level is they need to pay attention to the MRP programs that are out there, the managed repair programs. And I can't speak intelligently about the auto industry and how their MRP programs work and how those insurance companies dictate to a auto body company how they're going to repair a car. So I can't speak to that, right? But what I can speak to is my own experiences working out of state. I was last year, September of last year, my entire staff fell sick to COVID in Kansas City. So I got in the truck on a Sunday. I was in Longview, Texas, watching my son play baseball, and I drove to Kansas City. And I was running appointments for the guys. I was trying to run roofs. Like, I was literally the one man show there because, all 7 of my staff were COVID or exposed or whatever. And we didn't know a lot still at that time. And so I was there to fill in, and I get to my first 8 a.m. appointment with an adjuster. I show up and he's there. And, hey man, nice to meet you. And he was with a carrier out of Ohio. And he said, hey, I'm sure that your roofing contractor over here is a really nice guy and they probably do a really good job. I just want to let you know about this program that we have, that if you use one of our preferred vendors, we will waive your deductible for you. And I looked at him and I said, excuse me? And he said, yeah, if they use one of our contractors, we will waive the deductible for the consumer. and they'll use one of our preferred guys. And so I was able to overcome that with the consumer, and we got the deal and excluded them from that. But there's a lot of states where that deductible is, you go to jail. Like they'll throw you under the jail if you waive a deductible or whatever. And if you are a contractor, you got to think about that for just a second. Like think really long and hard about, I'm going to waive your deductible if you use my preferred contractor. Well, if you're not on that MRP program, and all states and Farmers and State Farms and Liberties and all of them start doing that, that's going to crush our industry and give them all of the control. And then they can pick and choose what they want, and move that on down the road. And so as an industry, how do you prevent that from happening?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm no expert. I'm just a football player from Texas that fell into roofing, but it gets into a real political arena really quick, really fast. And one of the ways that I have found personally to gain some traction in this political arena is to build relationships with your local state reps and your local state senators. That is paramount to the process. And if you are a roofer and you are listening to this right now, and you don't know who those people are in your life, I would encourage you to get on your Googler right now and find them and schedule a meeting with them. That is paramount for our success as an industry. And sitting by and saying somebody else will take care of it will never happen. And there's a saying when you show up in Austin and when you show up in DC and some of these other places, that those who show up are those who govern. And, the NRCA does a lot for us, and they're, our governing body for our industry in DC. But really and truly, it's more of a state issue. It's a state by state issue. And if we don't create language and create roadblocks to this MRP waive a deductible program, we're going to find ourselves being told what we can and can't charge. And the days of supplementing, and some of these guys, I mean, God bless them. They're true. I love the argument myself fighting with an insurance company, but you get guys asking for $1,000, $1,200 a square because of all these great Xactimate codes and fighting with the insurance carriers. And that also creates the other way.
Yeah.
And as an industry, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We're hurting ourselves, and we're going to probably, find ourselves in a real battle for this exact topic across multiple states in the years to come. We almost got this done in Texas in the 2021 session. So we made some changes to the deductible bill that we passed. We had the MRP situation I just brought up, that you can't waive the insurance company cannot waive the deductible in favor of an MRP contractor. We also put in there that the carrier is required now to be provided proof that the deductible has been paid before the release of the depreciation. We got that through the House. It went to the Senate, and we literally just ran out of time. It never got to the Senate floor for a vote to be sent to our governor to be adjusted into law. So it fell short. We just ran out of time. COVID was really the focus of this session, and we really thought we had a chance to get this in. And if we probably had 2 more weeks, we probably would have got it done. Would have got it to the Senate floor, but it never made its way. So again, if you don't know who your state rep is, if you don't know, or congressman, your state congressman, or your alderman, or your state senator, or whatever you call those people that govern for you in the capital of your state, get on your phone right now, figure out who they are. You are a constituent of theirs in a business in their parish or whatever you call it, and go take a meeting with them. Take them to coffee, go to breakfast. They will meet with you, and they will probably encourage this conversation and really dive into this with you.
And that's what a lot of us on a day-to-day basis get in. We're in our business, right? We're working on our business. We're working on keeping the lights on. We're working on, getting that next roof built. We're working on selling the next roof. But there's a bigger picture out there that's happening. And that's what I wanted to what we were talking about the other day. And I just had a recent podcast with a couple of the partners at Tate Law and Patrick Carr down in Florida about the recent law changes down there. And we talked about the national effects of this. And, each of these is unique. And that's what, to your point, Robert, is getting involved locally, speaking to your local representatives. I think it was Patrick Carr that brought up in Tallahassee. So in their states, in their capital, there's about 200 lobbyists representing the insurance industry. And there's a handful or less representing contractors, right? So you have to make your voice heard a lot more. And when the case gets made to these legislators by an insurance company lobbyist, they're going to make the case on behalf of that industry. And if yeah,
our lobbyists in Austin, Public Blueprint, those guys, there's two of them, and they are Elliot and David, and they are great guys, right? Like they are connected and plugged in down there at that Capitol, and nobody sneezes and they don't know about it, right? But it's just two guys.
Yep.
And what's fun about this, I wish the guys would see it this way, right? Like I think, as I'm speaking to most roofers here, that arguing with insurance adjusters and proving your point and advocating for your homeowner is damn near foreplay for us, right? Like we love it. It's who we are. And legislating for your industry is the same way. But it's different, and it creates some unique parallels that you got to work through, right? So you got guys that are like, hell no big government. We're going to get rid of all of it, And then there's guys that want to micromanage everything you do, that are, reps and congressmen and senators, whatever, right? So what's fun about it is it's politics, right? So, hey, Mr. State Rep, I'd like for you to consider this in your, when you're voting or whatever. And then they go, I'm not doing that, right? And it's okay. Well, the lobbyist then goes, well, I know you're really passionate about, the hair weaving bill or whatever silly thing is on the docket, right? You really want that. Yeah, we need that. Okay, well, I can help you get that, but you got to help me with this, right? And so it's really interesting when that stuff all starts to unfold and the deal making goes down and how it all kind of comes together. Just the conceptual part of legislating laws is a neat concept, and I feel like most of our guys in this industry would love to be a part of that and find that to be just as satisfying as taking an insurance adjuster and giving him what for and getting O&P on top of it when you're done.
I love that analogy, man, because that's a part of the sport, right? That's the sport of it with, getting everything on that supplement and all of that. Yeah. And so let's talk about what's going on there a little bit. So, first, I think being part of your associations is a must, right? That's part of it. The NRCA is amazing. Be part of that, but then also your more local associations and having conversations about the things that could potentially impact your business. Insurance companies sell their MRPs to the consumer. That, hey, these companies are going to work really hard to please us because we give them a lot of business.
Correct.
They're going to work at a reduced rate. You're going to save money, Mr. or Mrs. Homeowner. And now we're going to waive your deductible. This is the first time that I've heard of the waiving deductible in the MRPs, that's crazy. That's a whole nother ball game. But what we've always, most of the time in selling against that to a consumer, you're talking about, well, what kind of quality product are you going to get on your home for that, right? What corners do they have to cut to make sure that they, provide that reduced rate to the insurance companies, right?
They're leaving your old drip edge. There's 3 layers of felt, and they're just going to leave that felt and lay new felt on top of it. They're not
Exactly.
going to go and do a deck inspection. I mean, it happens. It
Yep.
it's going to it happens right now because you're being squeezed, but you got volume, right? Oh, there's volume. There's plenty. Come on.
So now that legislator, right, that state representative that you're speaking with, they have no clue about this.
They don't. They
They have
have
no
to.
they have no clue about building a roof. They don't know how to build a quality roof. They don't know what goes into it, what doesn't go into it. So now they're hearing this consumer protection language from the insurance side of things, of how, hey, we're going to provide this a reduced rate to the homeowner. We're going to be able to do all of these things, but they're not hearing the other side. So that's what I think you guys are doing a great job of making that contractor's voice heard and educating the people who are voting on this, educating them on why and why not.
So, funny story. This is crazy. It's just the way it works, and maybe it was just a stroke of luck, or it was meant to be, or whatever. But when I took my first meeting with our state rep, I've known him. We've known each other for a long time. I remember when he won his campaign, and I invited him to my office, and I said, I'd really like to talk to you, and just spend some time with you. So he had no idea that we had been lobbying for years in Austin. Was clueless to it. Had no idea, what was going on in the industry and the lack of regulation and licensing for our particular industry. It was clueless to the fact. And then come to find out, he's a veteran. He's a USAA guy. Good for you. And said USAA is going to take care of me. And he used a USAA MRP contractor and got screwed royally, big time. Was very passionate about his disgruntled experience and very frustrated about it. And this is a gentleman who is very far right, little government, no new taxes, none of that. But his personal situation is stories that we hear about all the time, taking the money and running off. He's been through that, and then I'm gonna hire somebody from the insurance company, and then they took him 7 days to roof a 44 square roof, and just stuff, right? Just the annoying, and we all know it. Roofing, getting your house roofed is not glamorous. It's not Chip and Joanna, exciting day for roofing day or demo day or whatever. It's a real nuisance to get your roof done, right? But there's ways you can go about it to make the process better, and understanding what you're doing, and then dragging it out for days, and then creating more and more and more and more heartache through the process just only makes it worse. And so, simple conversation. I just asked him for a meeting, and he took it. And he was more than happy to take the meeting, and was excited to just visit with me one-on-one, what we've never done before, because we see each other and stuff. And then I took a meeting with our state senator, and she is the opposite end. She's as nice as she can be. She's a far left Democrat, and she is big time on education. And so I took a meeting with her, and come to find out, her nephew is one of the big time roofers and a hell of an ambassador for roofing here in Texas. Had no idea, didn't put two and two together. Nobody had explored that or knew that. And, one thing leads to another. And now all of a sudden she's interested in roofing at a state level, simply because her nephew is a roofer. So again, I can't stress this enough. Get involved at a local level and pay attention to who your people are, because you never know when somebody's going to call you from your state association and say, hey, RJ, I need you to call your state rep. He's on the House floor right now, ask him to go take this for a revote. Well, okay, that's kind of cool, you know. You never know, right? And you never know where you might just have to play that part to help the industry to keep from having MRP people waiving deductibles to get their work that way. So
that's right. And it's tough. You know, a lot of the MRP programs for contractors, a lot of contractors want to be involved because of the consistent work that they can get out of it. You know, even if they're taking a reduced rate on that, a lot of them will use that to, you know, knock the neighbor's door. Hey, we're doing Bob and Judy's house next door. Well, you know, so they use that as a jump off point. But the more that happens, the more difficult it becomes, especially just making an unfair advantage, such as being able to waive the deductible is crazy. So get involved. The short and sweet lesson: get involved. Know that the industry is changing and evolving all the time, and that there are things that you can do, small things like have coffee with your local, you know, representatives in your area, educate them on what's going on in the process, what's going on in roofing, and so that they are more informed to make better decisions when they're casting that vote on the floor of the Senate or House in your area.
One more piggyback on this, and this particular topic. One of the biggest, and this is in Texas, and I promise you it's on a national level too. One of the biggest people that are against us in this industry that battle us are home builders, because they don't want roofers licensed. They don't want them regulated. They don't want to see our costs go up. And that's fine. I'm good with that. But deductible waiving for MRP, I mean, that doesn't affect them, right? So now we're cutting out some of this stuff to force that. And I think, you know, putting some sort of overlay on an MRP contractor situation with a carrier is going to have to happen in our industry, or we're going to wind up being told by Big Red that, hey man, you're getting $200 a square for this laminated roof, and yep, you get to make $10 a square profit. That's more than enough money, right?
Profit. And for those of you not watching on video, that's some air quotes right there.
True. Very true.
Yeah, you got to be on top of these things and be involved in it. Robert, you know, you've been in the industry for a long time. You've built a very successful roofing business. What do you think the greatest insight is that you could share with our audience that has helped you find success in roofing?
So when I started this business, my dad had a friend of his who was a contractor. And he said, I'm going to tell you what he told me his success was. And I took the advice to heart. And there's a couple different things that revolve around that, right? Show up when you say you're going to show up. Return the phone call. And do what you say you're going to do. And the fourth thing is, when you're wrong, you admit it. You're human. You're going to make mistakes. And those are really 4 pretty simple core values that I've built this business on. And my staff does the same thing. We return phone calls. We show up when we say we're going to show up. And when we're wrong, we're wrong. And we admit it.
Awesome. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. If you would like to generate more sales through your digital marketing efforts, please visit roofermarketers.com and get a copy of the book, Internet Marketing for Roofing Contractors: How to Triple Your Sales and Turn Your Roofing Website into an Online Lead Generation Machine. Also, check the training section of the website for guides on everything from running effective pay-per-click ads to how to properly set up your Google My Business listing. This has been another episode of the Roofing Success Podcast. Thanks for listening.